Dr. Clinton, I don't know if you want to call this a school board trustees meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, so this is a school board trustee. That's really a work session for us. And I'd like to welcome you. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming in tonight. Before we actually call our portion to order, we usually start with a prayer. So,
If you'd like to bow your heads and join me. Lord, we thank you for this beautiful spring day. We also thank you for our friendship and collaboration with the leaders in our city. Please continue to bless this partnership that we may make the best decisions for both our schools and city. In Jesus' name, amen.
all right, thank you. I'll call our side to order.
What we would do is have a roll call. Let's see, Mr. Abbott is absent, Mr. Austin here, Mr. Blankenship here, Mr. Eggers
Here.
Mr. Hukin here, Mr. Richards here, Mr. Wertz
Here.
Mr. Eggers. Yep. So we do have four.
All right, well, thank you. With that in mind, our very first agenda item is IT support between the city and Franklin. Thanks, Matt.
Hello, good evening. Matt Sprout. I make technology work here. I'll turn on the mic. That's what I do, right? So this is a collaboration, kind of bring you up to date as to where we are with the city. We've done a lot of great things, most of it behind the scenes. Some of those things we like to do right out front, and everybody gets to see it, but laying that foundation is kind of where we're at. We've improved the firewall, upgraded the firewall, so now it's up to technology expectations, and we're doing some things on the back end that I'll address here a little bit. One of the things I want to do is bring you up to date on where we're headed, though. It's always nice, what have you done, but everybody's kind of like, okay, what's the next steps? Namely, what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about an IT budget and what that looks like, more or less to get an idea of what the spending is. The city might buy Microsoft Office, the fire department might buy Microsoft Office, and by coordinating those costs, we may be able to reduce price. So we're going to look at hardware and software and start documenting some of that and try to take advantage of that. I mentioned the firewall earlier. We're going to do something called bandwidth shaping, if I can pronounce it. Bandwidth shaping. What that kind of does is allows the traffic on the internet that needs the highest priority, voice traffic over data traffic. And so we have, if you know Dustin Southard, he's our network person. He's going to be working with Rick on that. A few other things, we're going to be upgrading some switches. Once again, one of those back-end components I get real excited about, but nobody really cares as long as the technology comes on. But we're going to add a switch to the third floor of the city. We'll add one at the conference room, and then we're looking at moving some servers around to add some efficiency there also. One of the key components about technology is communication. I need help. Where's the documentation at? How do I communicate that help? And with Rick, we weren't really looking about doing this for another 6 to 8 months, but so we're ahead of schedule on that component. And so what we're ultimately going to do is create SpiceWorks, and that's going to allow people to create tickets, see what their tickets are, and then also for us to gather data. How are we doing? Are we able to resolve issues quicker than we thought we were able to? And be able to communicate that back to you and improve our services there too. The wiring, if you haven't heard about the city court, we're going to, Adam Bott is our certified wiring expert for our data, and so he'll be working with Rick on that to ensure that all that gets set up also. File print server, much like ours, is a little older than what it should be, so we're going to quickly intercede there, upgrade that operating system so that you're okay with all those attacks and all that stuff out there. So we're trying to stay ahead of the game. Once again, this is a 3-year commitment because we're not going to be able to fix everything overnight, and technology is an ever-growing item. So the school absolutely appreciates the collaboration with the city. I think this is just one of those things that we can continue to foster partnerships in it. I'd be glad to answer your questions.
Now, how often will one of your team members go down and interact with the mayor's office or somebody else? Is it once a week, twice a week? Do you have just a general sense of that?
It depends on the week. When we upgraded the firewall, it was for a week plus straight. Right now there's a lot of planning, so it's meetings going on from the wiring of the new building, changing the print server over. So it's more meetings than it is hands-on. And it also depends on our staff. Dustin spent a lot of time there, the network administrator, just in trying to get the firewall configured, the switches up to where they need to be. So Dustin's done a lot of work. Adam's going to get his fair share with the wiring. So it's just a collaboration between our team and ensuring that the right expert gets there at the right time. Long answer to your short question, I would say one of our team members is there at least 2 or 3 days a week.
And then can you talk about how you communicate with the mayor
Sure. Periodically on major milestones, the firewall is upgraded. I like to kind of give a notice ahead of time that this is about to happen because, as we all know, when you go to upgrade, sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't. So giving that forenotice is important. And then, so on those milestones, I'll email both Dr. Clendenny and the mayor on, okay, this is where we're at and what we see our next steps to be.
And I'd also like to add to the school board, because we have designated Rick Wilson as our full-time IT personnel. So before he was in the DPW, Department of Public Works, he's now dedicated full-time IT. So moving forward with.
Matt, got one question.
Yes, sir.
About the new city court. Are you guys working in conjunction with Rick?
Yes, we are.
Wiring of that facility?
Yes, we are. I believe we're meeting with the architect next week, thanks to Rick. Aaron and I have a scheduled meeting with him. I think the meetings are on Wednesday, is that correct? Okay, so we'll be start attending those meetings to make sure that we get there.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think it's been a great partnership for
I don't
all
think
all
there's
parties.
any doubt. There's any doubt.
And I was really advocating for Windows 10 the other day in my office.
Oh, I'll let that one
No,
lie.
he wasn't.
I'll let one be right where it's at. All right, well, I'd like to welcome Jonathan up also. I believe he's got some more information from the Mayor's Youth Council.
Thank you. Jonathan Ott, I'm the president of the Franklin Mayor's Youth Leadership Council. We've been a group that's worked in collaboration with Franklin Schools and the Office of the Mayor. We've been a group for, this is our third year officially, and this year specifically, we're working on this project, which is instating water bottle fountains into the high school. I'm Jonathan Ott, I'm the president.
I'm Dylan Clark, I'm the vice president.
Clay Black, senior.
I'm Lillian Lacey, I'm a sophomore.
Okay, so basically what these fountains are, they look similar to this, actually exactly like this. This is the model that we're ordering. They refill water bottles, which reduces plastic waste, which is pretty fitting considering today's Earth Day. We didn't plan that. But basically the bottle can be placed on the right here where this outline is, and that's an automatic sensor, so there's no touch. That eliminates germs. If you're not touching anything, you're not getting your germs onto anything. There's also a manual option, so you can use a fountain just like a normal fountain. It's composed of durable steel, so it's not gonna break down after just a couple of years. It's convenient for students to use. It's very easy, like I showed. It has the automatic sensor as well as the manual option.
So benefits, for one, I would say the largest benefit is the reduce of plastic waste from water bottles. So Duke University conducted a study and they pretty much like implemented these water bottle fountains in over 50 locations around their campus, and they tracked the research of it over a year, and it showed the prevention of 400,000 bottles of plastic waste. So it's good for the environment. And also, as Jonathan mentioned, it gets rid of germs. How do I get that? Oh, there. Okay. And also, the FCSC Wellness Committee agreed to donate one additional water bottle fountain, which brings our total to 3 water bottle fountains. And the third one will be put in the cafeteria.
Okay, so like she said, the one that the Wellness Committee is donating will be in the cafeteria, which is this area here. And the other 2, one of them will be in the upstairs D hallway, which is a very popular location. If I had to guess, I'd say probably 99.9% of students walk by it every single day. So it's very convenient. Someone can get a drink on their way to class. Another place is the athletic area right outside the field house. So for some of those Saturday all-day athletic events, people could use these fountains and take advantage of the opportunities. And another place is in the cafeteria. That's probably the most popular place for people specifically refilling water fountains, since they have it out when they're eating lunch.
When we started this project, we had a total fundraising goal of $1,890. which for those of you who are familiar with our last project, that was kind of a small number for us. You're trying to keep it low this year. Anyway, we have $0 left to raise. We're done. We finished fundraising everything, yeah. The city council got $249 from that. Thank them also. And yeah.
All right, so the rest of the funds would be used for our little library, which will be at Unity Park, where the handicapped accessible playground will be. And any other funds would be transferred to our account under the Parks Department at JCCF. The next steps, depending on how the water bottle fountains do here in Franklin through In-Green Ticker, which will track how many water bottle fountains it will save throughout its tenure, we might consider maybe expanding those water bottle fountains throughout the rest of the school. I believe that's it.
So, is there a filtration system on each individual one, or are we just using city water that's coming straight to the fountain?
It's using city water, which itself, the ones in the school, it's already filtered. So if we install a filter, that'd be a couple $100 extra each month.
Yeah, I know, they're very expensive. I assume they're very expensive. One's a home.
Any other questions?
When's the anticipated renovation project will be completed?
We're installing 3 of them. We'll have to work with Mr. Sewell on that specifically for an exact time, but pending board approval, we'll work on that later.
So we'll shoot for, I think, August, is that right? Next time being there. So I know that the athletic wing, especially as we get down to that, all the different summer projects, I know is one of the big target areas.
So another question too, are students using bring bottled water traditionally a lot to class, or are they bringing it in canisters from home, or?
A combination.
Combination.
Yeah, we have vending machines here that have water bottles, and then also people bring water bottles. Yeah, water bottles from home, so that saves. Yeah, generally when I'm in class, generally a third of the students have a metal water bottle that they bring home, or plastic.
So does that cost include the installation cost? Are you going through the school's maintenance department, or does this company bring them and set them up for you?
They bring them. We're going to work in collaboration with the school corporation and so on.
Maintenance. Good job.
Very good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. We have one action item with Tina.
So, due to the extended conversations about Webb and Needham in the last few weeks, it'll probably come as no surprise that our existing budget cannot accommodate that extensive expenses. So, the testing that's already been done in the schools and the mitigation that's scheduled to be done over the next few weeks, we're estimating at about $750,000. So I'm in front of the board today requesting approval to for an additional appropriation amount of $750,000 using the rainy day funds. Fortunately, there's a process for emergencies like this. The board approval, and then tomorrow, pending board approval, I'll send it on to the Department of Government Finance, and they will approve it as well. We are also fortunate that Mr. Mercer, the board, and Dr. Clendenning have done a good job in building our rainy day funds over the years to accommodate emergencies like this. So I am in front of you today requesting approval for that additional appropriation using rainy day funds. Our rainy day balance right now is a little over $6 million, and with this $750,000 adjustment, we'll still be at about $5.3 million. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
For approval.
All those in favor signify by a sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, it looks like Mayor's going to do a city overview. Mayor Barnett.
I want to thank you guys for continuing this collaboration between the school board, city council, and it doesn't happen anywhere else. We've talked about that before. I talked to other mayors in other cities, and they're amazed this happens. And I do want to bring up, we do collaborate in another area too, as a school resource officer. This new chief, Kirby Cochran, I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to meet Kirby, but he's 5 months now, 6 months, I don't know, he's our chief. I don't think you've ever had him at one of these meetings. But one thing that Kirby and I talked about when he became the chief was how do we get more school resource officers, and he was able to accommodate 2 right off the bat. So thank you for that, Kirby. On the agenda, it has talking about buildings and construction and all that. So I'm an infrastructure guy, so I'll just start right there with infrastructure. What we have going on in 2019, it's going to be a big year for us again. We had a big year last year. Jefferson Street phases 8 and 9, which is from Forsyth Street to King Street and from King Street to Middleton. Of course, you see all the detours, and we're hearing it every day, so that's going on. The new roundabout at Arbin Road, Hurricane Road, and Eastview Drive. And then part of last year's mill and overlay that did not get finished, it's about $500,000. We're going to start on that in the next, I think, couple of weeks. West Jefferson Street and the trail project, which is out at West Jefferson by the hospital, and mill and overlay West Jefferson Street out there after we do the trails. That's headed that way. And next year with the West Jefferson Street and Westview Drive, there'll be a roundabout put there next year. So anyway, the mill and overlay from last year, the Commerce from US 31 to Graham, mill and overlay from South Street from US 31 to South Main Street, mill and overlay Westview from Commons Way to the bridge. And like I said, all of that is from last year, right at $500,000 that was left over. And it hasn't, we've announced it at our city council meeting, but we haven't announced in the newspaper yet. Of course, it's something good, so we won't get all the good stuff, we just get the bad stuff. We did get $1 million grant from the state of Indiana, a matching grant, so this year we'll be able to do $2.5 million on our annual alley and street paving projects. We have those roads identified, and it's getting ready to go out for bid later on. Hopefully that part will get in the paper and people get to see what all the good that we're doing. The first phase of the Youngs Creek Greenways Trails project, that's the South Main Street parking lot. There's going to be a new parking lot added, 95 spaces. When you call the Greenways Trails project, that's down in the flood area where we're buying out. We've already bought, like the old sale barn, we just closed on it. And then the wrecker service, Graham's Wrecker Service, Bastion Logan, all those properties we bought. We're looking to try to design an amphitheater and use that for a park area, something that community can use and have a little storage for floodwaters downtown Franklin. We're also, as you heard Matt mention earlier, we're moving our city court to the US 31 at the police station. And one reason we're doing that, the prosecutor's office need more space. We've been paying rent several years, so we were kind of, I hate to say forced out, but they need the space and we need to get out on our own anyway. So we're investing a pretty penny, about $1 million into our new court paving, and it has to do with some additions in the street department. There's quite a bit to that. It's not all of that goes to city court. If you look downtown, you can see a facade being put at Frichette's Eye Care downtown building. That will get that building looking like the rest of the downtown, and that will be the last major piece to bring our city up to what we feel we all want it to be. We're working on creating an arts district, and we just had a meeting on that. There were surveys online to fill out, and we've already got 150 people that's filled out a survey telling us, what they want to see in a arts district. So pretty impressed with that. Tearing down those buildings in the Greenway Trails project, hopefully we can get that done this year. I have been told by city engineer that DNR may have something to say about that before we can tear it down. We have to have a plan together of all we're going to put back in the floodway. So we may not get those tore down until next spring, but we're going to keep working on that. The grand opening of the Fairfield Inn and Suites. Of course, we've all been waiting on that to happen. The latest date I've had is June. So hopefully in the middle of June, we'll get that opened up. The grand opening at the Hampton Inn Hotel, sometime in December, and they're moving right along. So when they tell me December, am I going to sit here and say it's December? No, but I'm a little bit more confident in them than I are the other group. So there's going to be a grand opening of the Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation Center at Compass Park sometime in May. Compass Park they've been a big community partner also. Compass Park also, we broke ground on the Youngs Creek Luxury Apartments. We did that in January. We have a new Sargent Aerospace, good business here in town that's expanding. We're building a new building. Should be opened up midsummer. Wooden Bear Brewing just opened up out by the interstate. Grand opening of the RFD Dining, the old post office. It's ready to go. We're just waiting on the folks to pull the trigger. So hopefully that'll be a nice addition to the city. A grand opening of the Mint, which is a bourbon bar downtown. Then we have some special announcements, which you've probably already heard. Hobby Lobby is going to be moving into the old Kroger store. That's going to be an anchor, I think, for that park over there. So we're looking forward to that. Also out by the interstate, there's plans right now for a Taco Bell and a Starbucks. And I'll tell you how that works. There's 5 other lots available. And the mayor's office, whoever the mayor is, whoever's the president of the Redevelopment Commission, and whoever's the president of the Franklin Development Corporation, in the next 5 lots, they have a say in what goes there, because we just don't want the developer just to sell the property to somebody and put something that we don't desire. So we've kind of worked that into the agreement that we had with those. So there is 5 lots. Yes, we all want a sit-down restaurant. I hear it every day. We're trying. So, and the developer wants that also. Also this year on US 31, and I think Mr. Yukon's going to talk a little bit here just about the TIF district. We're working with the state of Indiana on a plan to have trails down both sides of US 31 and changing the traffic flow. And people get nervous, and I'll just say what it is. It's J-turns, and people get nervous when they hear the word J-turns. But you know what? It is a safety issue. And if you saw, I think it was last week in one day, it might have been Friday, I'm not sure which day, there were 3 wrecks on US 31, and one of them was pretty severe. And that stretch of US 31 is the most dangerous section of US 31 from Columbus to Indianapolis of accidents. So we got to do something, and if we don't agree to work with the state, they're going to do it without us, and we're not going to have a say and not get what we want out of it. So the trails and have some input on some of the intersections is what we're looking for. It's a $45 million project that the state is going to work on. That's what it would cost to do this project, and the city's part of that would be about $5 million to engineer it. That's our partnership with them. So I think if we chose not to do that, I think that's going to be a loss for our community that we didn't invest in that. Also, you've probably heard out by WinStar, we're working with a group to have bigger lots, and they've already committed to the bigger lots. I think you've all heard that they were going to have a bunch of small lots. It was like 560 lots, and through negotiation and I want to say a little bit of pressure, they're down to 460 lots, and it's not going to be quite as big as the lots are there, but it's pretty significant, and it's not going to be just the small lots, and hopefully the homes are supposed to be between $200,000 and $350,000. So I think that's going to help with our assessed values for the schools in the city. We're also going to look at doing a feasibility study at another I-65 exit at Earlywood. That doesn't mean it's going to happen now. That just means that you have to start a study to get this done. It may be 10 years from now, but if you don't ever do the study, you never have the opportunity to look at the impacts you can do to move north. There's a McAllister's. I don't know if you've heard, there's a McAllister's that's looking to open in front of the Meyer store where the trees are. Yeah, we've already heard about the trees coming down, but I think that's going to be breaking ground in the next month or so. And speaking of trees, it's not public knowledge yet, but we have been, thanks to Mr. Wertz, who's on the board, we've been named a Tree City USA, which makes us available for funds to help with all the trees that we have in the city of Franklin and taking care of that. So that and trying to design our amphitheater, we're in hopes of, we're working with a group now to try to get that done. So that's really the plans we have for 2019, and I can say that in 10 minutes, but that's going to take a long time to get all this accomplished. So the staff at our office, they're thinking, when are you going to stop? So, but I think we're all on a good path as community partners together with the school and the city, and we appreciate all that you guys are doing. One other thing, I don't want to leave this out. Speaking of the contamination on Forsyth Street, you probably heard me say, I am working with Amphenol Company. They're the ones that contaminated down Forsyth Street back in the 70s, 80s. And we're in negotiation right now. I don't want to say negotiation, we're in the planning, because they're going to pay to clean it all up, dig up the street, dig up the sewer, fix it all back, and we're looking to do that sometime in July or August. And I will say, which there's no final, what I've been told by the experts, and I think Dr. Clendenning, we don't think that Amphenol has anything to do with Webb or Northwood. They're still investigating that, and I will let you know that we also, when this come up with Northwood, I said that the other day, didn't I? When this come up with Needham and Webb, that we immediately hired EnviroFrenzy to do the testing around the sewers coming from the Hoagland Cannon factory, and they're still in the investigative phase of that. So just so I give you a heads up on that, we're still working at that and see where it goes. So, any questions you have for me? Don't let me off this easy.
Can you describe a J-turn? I don't know what that is.
Okay, let's say a J-turn is if you want to turn in right here, and you may not be able to turn left, so you got to go up a little farther, turn around and come back and turn in this way. So some people call them Michigan lefts, but Mr. McGinnis told me it's not a Michigan left, it's a J-turn.
He said it.
That's what he said. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
I see these white squares painted on the road all
Yeah.
over Franklin. What are those for?
That is a way to engineer a job from the sky. That is, yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, so, and everybody asks that same question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? And that's part of the US 31 job. They're going through some of the engineering early phases of it now. That's what that is. Okay. Okay, it's your last chance.
Thank you very much. A lot going on. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Yukin, next on the list, TIF area. Good. You're looking good.
Hello to everyone. My name is Bob Hukin. I am a city councilman, and I'm also on the redevelopment commission. I've been on that board for a number, well, probably about 10 or 11 years. But I'd also note that Drew Eggers is a member of the redevelopment commission. You see Drew over there, and Richard Wertz. I think you've been there about as long as I've been on the RDC. I'm here to talk a little bit about the US 31 TIF area, okay? Now, I can't really talk too long without, first of all, trying to explain a little bit about what a TIF area is, because it took me a while to grasp it, even when I was on the redevelopment commission. But for example, we go up the street here, there's a piece of property that's owned by, I won't give the individual's name, but it used to be a lumber company. I think Hillview Country Club uses an indoor training thing in the wintertime. That's a piece of property that is currently in a TIF area. Right now, it paid, and before it became a TIF area, let's just say it paid $1,000 a year in property taxes, okay, before it became TIF. And based on its current condition, it still might pay $1,000. When they go and make improvements on that property, at some point there might be a big building that goes in there, maybe a business. Those property taxes might go from $1,000 to $10,000 per year. And what a TIF does, it captures those taxes on the improvements that have been made after the TIF area was declared. So the TIF areas on US 31 are primarily Kroger in the adjoining area and the Meijer store in the adjoining area. That TIF area was approved prior to those stores getting up. We just barely got in there on that. Now, I'm not going to give you a dollar amount of what those TIF dollars are, but from the time it became a lot to a actual big building, those property taxes went up. They stay in that TIF area. The theory behind TIF is those dollars can be used in that TIF zone on infrastructure. If the city needed to put a road in for access, we do that on one of our other areas. If there's maybe sewer lines or something like that, that could be spent. Communities are allowed to create what they call integrated areas, which are close by those TIF areas in which dollars are not captured in that TIF area, but they can be spent there. And that's the beauty of what our community has been able to do since we created integrated areas in 2008, okay? And there's a lot of misunderstanding about TIF, because whenever there's TIF, they say, well, you're just taking money from the cities and the counties and the schools. What those dollars do, I'll give you a good example, is we use TIF dollars to provide an incentive for the rehab or revitalization of the downtown. Take the Hazlett building, which was about, the facade was about to fall in. The assessed value on that might have been, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, maybe $200,000. Take a guess, I don't know what it is now, but maybe over $1 million worth of assessed value. The garment factory building, you know what it was before it became the garment factory events, okay? That valuation has gone up. We spent TIF areas, TIF dollars in that area to assist, but we don't capture them in those areas, but it increases the assessed value. I know when we bonded for the improvements, which eventually led to the rework of the I-65 area behind McDonald's, Dr. Clendenny, we had to extend the TIF period, which was to the detriment of the schools, the county, and the cities, and so forth. However, and I'm not going to quote you, I don't put you on the spot, but you said you're increasing assessed value out there. That is not a TIF area in which we collect taxes out of, but we can spend dollars there. And so, you know, once those hotels are up and going, Mayor, you've worked hard to get the Sprague family involved in the Hampton Inn. They've got those other lots. They're going to develop those in a good way. There's going to be some pretty nice pieces of properties out there. They're going to be paying taxes, and that will help the assessed value. Look at the downtown. I'm getting on a tangent now.
Can I
Yeah.
For Becky and for Ryan, when the TIF on the King Street corridor was going up, we did have a conversation with the mayor, and we talked about a variety of options, and we came back to the board at the time. Danny was our member sitting on there, and we looked at either extending the TIF beyond that, or providing it as an allocation site where they wouldn't TIF it. And so thank you to the mayor and our collaboration, we did not extend the TIF there. However, the J-turn we just talked about, when it came down to the new buildings on 31, we did say, yes, that's a good dollar savings for us because of safety, because of both the middle school and Northwood being right there and getting those kids into the building. At the time Danny came back, we did share with everybody that we would sign off and say that was really good. Now they can do it without us, but it's a good example of collaboration that goes on between the school and the city. And even though it's the TIF and RDC that ends up moving forward with that, it really is a strong partnership. So that's just an example of some of those things that Mr. Even's talking about.
That we talk to one another,
We do.
which is a good thing. Before I get into this map that's in front of me, I want to just talk a little bit. You've already alluded to this, why the TIF area was created to begin with. It wasn't just the opportunity to capture those dollars. But I think I'm gonna go back to Councilman Joe Abbott isn't here, but he's long been an advocate of, when are you gonna move development up toward Knollwood Farms, which is his district, that's where he lives. I think he feels they're kind of an island to themselves. There's no walking paths up there, there's no way to get to Knollwood except to drive up there, and it may be years before development eventually got there. He was an advocate of that. Richard Wirtz has been an advocate of, who's been on the RDC and the city council for a number of years, has been an advocate of safety, about getting people across these highways. You've advocated, why not look at maybe bridges across the highways? Maybe we like tunnel underneath there, that may not be your idea. Of course, the state owns that road, so there's not a lot, we have to do things at their discretion. But Richard was a leader in promoting the idea, let's tip this area and let's get it done while we have an opportunity to do so. And again, we're tipping, well, I'll get into the map you see right here. Crystal Linky from the Department of Economic Business Development here for the city put this out. The TIF area is actually those two yellow areas that you see. That's where taxes or property taxes are collected on the improvements on the Kroger on the south side of those buildings where Ross and the pet food store and a couple of those others are. And then up in the area near, and everybody should have a copy. We have some that don't, sorry. Yeah, we got a couple extra up here. I think Tara's going to bring some around. Sorry about that, Tara, I should have brought those. Everybody got one? Okay. The yellow ones, what you see in the yellow is the TIF areas themselves where the dollars are captured and put into the TIF funds. Now, you've got another handout. I didn't bring it up with me, but it does show an estimated cash flow that we expect to get. I don't have it again. It's maybe it's every 6 months. You see from the north and the south. So it's a significant amount of money that comes in. The red areas were there long before the TIF area was done. That was an area that in 2008 the city was declared an integrated area in which the city could spend TIF dollars to make improvements, but not necessarily, it's not a TIF area in which we collect taxes out of. The whole downtown area is basically one integrated area where we spend dollars in the downtown, east and west Jefferson Street, north and south Main Street. That's how the city was able to utilize TIF dollars to help those gateway projects get done. The blue area was recently approved. That is the area where the mayor just referenced a few moments ago. By the way, I should mention that Mayor, you were involved quite heavily also when we put together this TIF area. Certainly anything that's done of this nature, the mayor's involved in, you were a supporter of it and played a large role as well as Richard, and in the early days, Joe Abbott, so I forgot to mention you on that. So, but anyway, the blue area is an area that was recently approved. That encompasses that area that is the Youngs Creek Trails, where that project's going to be. That will allow us to spend dollars in that area. Right now, there are plans to, and it's underway, and we believe. All right, let me have the. I'm going to talk about the yellow areas again. The TIF area was created primarily, it's already been repeating it, on these developments, primarily Kroger and Meyer, to enhance public accessibility up and down the highway with walking trails, walking paths. I'm not quite sure what they're going to be, but they're going to extend from Knollwood all the way down to South Main Street on the south side of Franklin on both sides. I was laughing today with Tara and the mayor because I was talking about when I used to bowl when I was like 12 years old. Me and my brothers would walk down 31 and have like a concrete strip like that. We'd walk down the middle of 31 on the north side of Franklin. This is before I-65 existed, and you had trucks going everywhere, and it's just like we were nuts to do that. But there are people that do that. We had no other place to walk, so we just walked down the middle of the road. We hope to maybe spur on some economic development that will go up and down there. Once that road's done and the state's going to do that $40 million project, that should help enhance development up and down there. And all of that development will be new tax dollars that will not be captured. So we're just capturing a small amount. Certainly two of the big box stores. But everything else that comes, if they develop it here on the corner, all the way up to Knollwood, or all the way south in that area, that will be new dollars that will come into the community and not be part of the TIF, okay? And again, I think the big thing going on right now is plans are to create we're going to borrow $10 million, maybe up to $10 million. That number hasn't been totally finalized yet. Again, those numbers that you saw showing the payments that come in represent cash flow. Those dollars will be presented to the bond company. We can support, how much can we support the borrowing money in order to fund the bond? And those dollars will be, again, the mayor will have a big role in what that final amount will be. But we do know we're going to need about $4.5 million to do the design work for the state along US 31. Had we not had those TIF districts, I'm not sure that project would ever get off the ground, because where would you get $4.5 million to do that? So I think we were very fortunate that our leaders said we're going to TIF that area while we have an opportunity to do so, because it does provide that ability to create that cash flow, which allows us to borrow money. In order to do that now, rather than wait many years for this money to accumulate, we can actually put it to work right now. We don't know what it's going to cost to do the Youngs Creek Trail project down there. The amphitheater is still a big question mark as the cost, but we do know we want to get trails down there. We want to get those properties that can be torn down, make sure it's all safe, and then eventually that's going to get turned over to the Parks Department, and then it'll be just a nice green area for the city of Franklin. We even have visions that there's an old abandoned railroad bridge down there that might be crossed someday. That's another day. That's way down the road. That's kind of frivolous money. But you never know. But down the road, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, they'll be enjoying that. It'll flood periodically, but it'll be like Providence Park. It'll get used and reused and all that. Kind of ramble. Any questions? You know, the TIF, and I think this is a good example of putting TIF to use for the good of the community, and it's going to create a lot of benefits once the development continues to go. Joe Allen will get his walking paths up in Knollwood, and eventually there might be a store put up that way or a business put up that way. It's all good. You know, and Franklin's been revitalized primarily because of the TIF dollars. It would have been difficult to do what our community has done without that money that accumulated for a number of years. But the legal people that represented Franklin saw that there was a window in which we could create those integrated areas in which we could spend those dollars. That's been a big benefit. No questions? Okay, thank you.
Ken, I'd like to add one thing.
Yeah, I have to ask you to.
The school and the city have collaborated earlier, and we have some new school board members and some new council people and the youth council. But the school and the city a few years ago started the Chromebook project, which was a joint project from the TIF districts, which allowed the school to move a little quicker with putting computers in all of the schools around. And a big thank you to Dr. Glendenning and his staff. I know Matt had a big part to making that happen. So the school and the city have worked through the years with the TIF to invest for the best part of our community.
And another project were safety vesticles. Right after Sandy Hook, Richard and other members came and said, how can we help? And so we actually put safety vesticles into all of the elementaries and CBIS middle school. And those were already being done as part of the project. The elementaries were not. So we put them in the elementaries, thank you to the RDC. And the only thing the board had to do then was go out to Union. It was not in the red zone. So we were not able to capture that, but that was another partnership to say thank you back to make sure our kids are growing and being safe. So yes.
Mayor, if you have anything else to add?
I don't think I have anything unless there's any questions. I'll beg you for a question.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to add anything?
Just to know that the schools don't pay taxes, so when you add on to those water fountains, that does not
Wow. All right, that's what.
doesn't increase the tax base.
Yes, sir.
Put it that way.
I actually come from Greenwood. My
Okay.
kids live down there with them all.
Okay.
And the J-terms gonna be a nightmare for me. Especially when my kids are gonna be at middle school and high school eventually. Right now I have 2 at Creekside and 1 and 2 at middle school. Make sure I have 1 at Creekside, 1 at Professor Baker, and 2 at middle school.
Sure.
So is there any plans available? I just went looking for those type of things.
Has any of the plans been published of what they're talking about, of where these things are going to go and what's going to happen to US 31?
They have not, at this point, they have not. There's some preliminary drawings that's out there that the state has put out. But what we're being told is, like I said before, the state is going to do this with or without us. So that's actually a state design, and what we're trying to get out of it under the trails on both sides. We want the trails. If we say we don't want J-terms, they're going to do it without us, and then we don't get the trails. And another part of that I didn't mention about, there's also a flood area back on the north end of town, and there's a pipe that goes under US 31 that needs to be upgraded that's going to help the water flow, and not that the state is going to take care of. And that's also going to stop the flooding back on the north end of town. So, and like I said, I can't tell you enough, the state is going to do this with or without us. And they will just come in, matter of fact, there by Freddy's and B-Dubs, they were going to take that all the way out when people cut across there now, and they're going to hold off, and that's going to be one of them that's taken away. But if we don't play the game and do what they want to do, they're going to do it without us and do it anyway. So it's going to happen.
What's going on, because it's going to affect the need of us.
Okay.
But things are actually, might improve you getting in and out. Safer, quicker. I mean, I think that's ultimately the state's goal.
Mr. Birch, I just have a few items before we close. Mr. Mercer could not be with us tonight, but I did want to highlight a couple of things. One is to say a big thank you to Jeff. He was president of FDC as well as our CFO for the past several years and helped us through some very difficult times, and his performance shows it can continue to be difficult, and we're hoping some things. But wanted to just highlight Jeff. He's not here, but I want to say thank you publicly for the partnership I know that he's had with the city and different things. Additionally, a few weeks ago, we did name our baseball complex, the field, after the Mercer family. And that was a really special time. The board was there, and we had several introductions, and it's now called Mercer Field at the high school. So if you go up, you'll see the sign, and just it's a nice first family, something that we'll remember, and say thank you to Jeff. In addition to that, I'd like to introduce Tina Gross. She talked just a few minutes ago, but Tina's our new CFO. And the board graciously allowed an overlap of CFO's tenure so we could do some cross-training and get some things up. Tina's working on our budget, and lo and behold, the state decided to change how we're going to do budgeting at this time. So Jeff is helping kind of transition that for us. But Tina is also now a member of FDC, another example of partnership that exists between the school and the city. So I wanted to just introduce her formally, and you'll get to see her in and around. Before that, she was the president of Ivy Tech here in Franklin, so you probably had a chance to see her on her campus site, so that was a great thing. And it was quite a coup, these two sitting right here. I sold one from Ivy Tech and the other from the college, so I was a winner, and I don't know about them. So but the school's won big on that, so I want to just introduce them. And that's Brooke Worland, the new assistant superintendent for us.
Still trying to get used to seeing Brooke in here.
Yeah. You didn't play very nice. Well, I did collaborate. I did call both parties and say, I have an idea. And I also want to highlight the Mayor's Youth Council, because this actually started at the last few months of Mayor McGinnis, and then Mayor Barnett picked it right up and continued going. And there's an application process for the kids to actually be a part of his youth council. And I believe the applications are out now, or coming out correctly. And I wanted to highlight to get the kids involved. All of these students are student leaders, both on the classroom side as well on the athletic side. I'll probably embarrass Lily for a second, but she just won the county in 2 events just last week. She's the 1600 and 3200 county champion, so congratulations. Let's just an example. It's just really great. So I want to highlight that that's the type of kid that we're seeing come through. And Jonathan's shepherding 2 huge projects for us, and we want to say thank you. Jonathan was also the Lilly recipient this year in Johnson County. So this is an example of what our kids are doing, both now and what the future looks like. So kudos to all of them as well. So I want to make sure the application process is known to get more people to participate with the mayor. And then Clay is actually interning at the mayor's office. So he goes and interacts with him on a regular basis. Can I add one thing? Yes. There's a lot of people think that the mayor, Tara, and I actually choose the mayor's youth council. We do not. So you'd be surprised how many parents told me last year. And I want to go back to the very first meeting we had of joint city council. And Mr. Wells was with us, if you remember. We were talking about a walking path from the high school to Knollwood. So some of the people have been with us, and it never took place. And I want to tell you what happened. We all said yes. Knollwood Side City, school said yes. The landowner who owns the majority of it said yes. However, there were a few landowners on the right side between the property that we were granted access to and the highway, and they have said no. And so we are working still through that process. So if you know anyone in the county, you want to talk to them about some things, it'd be great, because we do have a lot of those kids that live at Knollwood, and it would be so nice for them not to have to get to that highway when they could just get on the bike path and come down here. But that was one of the first action items we actually did during the city council school board meeting. So I just wanted to highlight that. It's still on there. I know people are still talking about it, but it didn't come to fruition yet because of some other opportunities that are still out there for us, and we'll continue to look at that. And Mr. Wertz, the last one. On May 7th, it's a special day for us. It's election day for many of you running for your seats, so good luck and best wishes. But for the school, it's the very first time we're having an operating referendum in Johnson County. And we've had a lot of conversations, and this past weekend we passed out over 360 signs to people that are supporting us and saying, yes, please come in and engage in that collaboration. And there are 3 main items that we're looking at: teacher salary, support staff salary, and mental health, and helping support our kids in that journey. So over the next several days, you'll continue to hear more about that. Mr. Mercer, Mrs. Gross, and I have had over 115 conversations, and most of them are in small group or individual to talk about it. And overwhelming support when we start talking about what we're doing. And again, kudos to Jeff and the board for their leadership with our Six Sigma strategies, and really looking at a very difficult problem and working through that to get the very best answer for our school district. And the best answer right now is to go ask the community to partner one more time. And the last thing I would say on that is, when I do the presentation, I really say the referendum is about 2 words. I can sum it up in 2 words: collaboration and relationships. We're asking the city and the people in Union, Franklin, and Needham Townships to collaborate with us so that we can create great relationships with our kids, because that's what it's all about. Our guiding principle of individual student growth reigns supreme. We want all of these kids to go do whatever they want to do and come back and run the city someday, or move on to be president, or whatever they want to do. If you work at Ice Miller as an attorney, or wherever. But we want them to do that. So we need that relationship. We want great teachers. You know, when we lose great teachers to somebody else, it's very difficult. We're not asking to pay our teachers to the top of the scale. We're just asking us to get in the hunt, because the culture and relationships that we have internally are awesome. But we need those people to be, and we also need support staff. You know, we have a bus driver. It's one of the stories I tell in the presentation. But Stan Kramer, I'll tell him by name. Anybody know Stan? Great man. Stan has been a bus driver for over 40 years. And Stan's had about the same route for those same years. You know what the discipline is on his bus? Does anyone want to guess the discipline referrals on his bus for a year? Drew, Mr. Agers is right, 0. And why is that? He knows everybody. So if somebody, if a kid, and they do act up, what does Stan do? Go talk to the kid, go talk to the family. And if we don't have that opportunity, we can grow relationships because of that. We had a bus driver we trained the other day, and as soon as training was over, she went to Clark Pleasant and got a job. So that's what we're asking for in the referendum, is just to provide those opportunities for collaboration and relationships. So with that, I'll stop. But I do want to thank you for coming out. I agree with the mayor and Mr. Wirtz and Mr. Austin. As we talked about, this is a significant thing for our community. And most schools and cities do not come together and talk like this and share stories and work collaboratively to make the city a better place. You know, tomorrow, the mayor, the college president, the new CEO, interim CEO at the hospital, we have a meeting. And we've been doing that since we've all been together, talking about how we make the greater good take place. And that will continue, and I just want to thank you, the leadership, for allowing that. So, thanks.
All right, thank you.